You're adopted." Her voice cut through the laughter, the music, the clinking of champagne glasses like a knife. We were standing in front of the giant Happy 60th, Dad banner, surrounded by 40 people, family, friends, co-workers. And there she was, my sister, Madison, holding a wine glass and a twisted smirk, delivering the toast that would change everything. I blinked. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice already shaking. She didn't flinch. "I mean, everyone else knows. It's not like it's a secret anymore, right?" The room went dead silent. I looked at my dad. He looked pale. My mom wouldn't even meet my eyes. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. I felt like the floor beneath me cracked open, and I was falling into something I wasn't ready to know. And that night, at what was supposed to be a celebration, I found out I'd been living someone else's truth my entire life. Have you ever had your identity ripped away in front of people who were supposed to love you? Tell me where you're watching from, because I need to know I'm not the only one. I grew up in a quiet little town in Oregon called Redmond. One of those places where everyone knows your name, your business, and your family history, or at least they think they do. My parents, Evelyn and Richard Bennett, were well-respected, well-dressed, and well-liked. My dad was the kind of man who wore a tie even on Sundays, just to water the lawn. And my mom? She could host a dinner party for 30 without breaking a sweat. And then there was me, Emily. The quiet one, the shy one, the polite daughter. I never liked the spotlight, and thankfully Madison, my older sister by 3 years, craved it so much I never had to fight her for it. She was bold, loud, always laughing, always showing off. Everyone adored her. Growing up, I thought our family was picture perfect. We had holiday cards taken every year at the same photo studio downtown. Dad would pretend to be annoyed, but we knew he secretly loved how Mom coordinated our outfits. One year it was denim, the next winter white. Christmases were magical. Every year, Dad would hang this big, clunky plastic star at the top of the tree, and he'd say, "Emily gets to light it up." It was our little thing. Madison didn't care. She was usually too busy opening her presents early, when she thought no one was watching. My parents never made a big show of love, not like hugs and "I love yous," but they were present. Dinners at 6:30 sharp. Birthday cakes from the same bakery. Chores split by the chore wheel on the fridge. Everything had its place. But now, when I think back, I notice the gaps. There's this family photo from when I was maybe 4 or 5. We're all standing on the front porch, arms around each other. But if you look closely, Mom's hand is on Madison's shoulder, and Dad's arm wraps around her too. I'm just standing there, a little to the side, smiling, but not touched. I didn't see it then. When I was 6, I asked my mom if I was born in Redmond like Madison. She hesitated for a second, just a flicker in her eyes, and said, "Of course, sweetie. Don't ask silly questions." Silly questions. When I turned 10, I got the flu really bad. Dad took Madison to a father-daughter dance at her school that night anyway. I remember sitting on the couch with my blanket, a fever of 102, and Mom barely looked up from her magazine. "You'll be fine, Emily. Just rest." Still, I tried so hard to be the easy daughter. Good grades. No drama. I stayed in line. I stayed small. And Madison? She pushed every boundary and got praised for being independent. I used to think she was just jealous of me. Or maybe I was just jealous of her. But now I think she knew something I didn't. There were whispers. Once, during Thanksgiving, our Aunt Linda, who had a little too much wine, said, "You're nothing like your mother, you know." I asked what she meant, but she just laughed and said, "That's not a bad thing." Even at school, teachers would say things like, "You don't have your sister's fire." I didn't mind. I liked being quiet. I liked writing. I liked painting. Madison said I was boring. I said I was peaceful. But if I'm being honest, deep down, I always felt like I didn't fully belong. Like I was orbiting this family instead of being at the center of it. Still, I love my dad. He was my anchor. When I got into Reed College on a partial scholarship, he drove me there himself and bought me a box of gourmet chocolates for the dorm girls. He said, "Don't let anyone make you feel small, Emmy. That was the last time I remember feeling sure of who I was. I built my whole identity around being his daughter. The quiet, good one. The easy one. The one who didn't cause trouble. So when Madison stood up at his 60th birthday and took that away from me with a single sentence, it shattered everything. Looking back now, I can see it all so clearly. The cracks were always there, not sudden, not loud, just soft, consistent reminders that I wasn't like them, that I was other. It started with the little things. The way Madison used to whisper, "You're so weird," when I'd bring a book to the dinner table or try to talk about something I'd read in class. She never said it with hate, it was more like amusement or maybe pity. But it stung just the same. We weren't close growing up. But siblings fight, right? That's what I told myself. I thought it was normal. She'd call me the charity case when she was mad. Once, when I was 13 and she was 16, I overheard her tell a friend on the phone, "Emily's like not really one of us." You know what I mean? At the time, I thought she just meant I was boring or not fun. I didn't realize she meant it literally. But the comment stayed with me, like a splinter I couldn't dig out. When I was 17, I found an old baby album on the top shelf of the hallway closet. It had Madison's name embossed on the front. Madison Lee Bennett, baby's first year. Inside, there were pages and pages of photos. Her first steps, her first words, her tiny hospital bracelet taped to a page. Mom even saved a lock of her hair. Naturally, I went searching for mine. There wasn't one. I asked my mom later as casually as I could, "Did you ever make a baby book for me too?" She looked up from chopping carrots and said, "I think we meant to, but we were just so busy back then." I'm sorry, honey. That night, I cried into my pillow. I didn't even know why. It felt ridiculous to cry over a photo album. But it wasn't the album, it was what it represented. Like I had just discovered a piece of evidence in a case I didn't know I was part of. Still, I pushed it down. I told myself parents forget things. They get tired. It doesn't mean anything. But Madison never forgot anything when it came to me. Especially when she wanted to remind me of my place. One Thanksgiving, years later, we were all sitting around the table, the whole extended family, 20 people deep. Madison made a toast about family traditions and how we'd all inherited Mom's stubbornness and Dad's strong nose. Then she looked right at me and added, "Well, most of us anyway." People laughed. I laughed too, because what else was I supposed to do? But afterward, I asked her privately, "Why would you say that?" She shrugged. "It was a joke, Emily." God, you're so sensitive. Sensitive. That word followed me around like a shadow. Anytime I asked questions, anytime I tried to speak up, I was being dramatic. Sensitive. Too emotional. When I got my first job after college, a content writing role at a small firm in Portland, my dad congratulated me. Madison, on the other hand, smirked and said, "So, you're writing fluff for money now? Cute." I wanted to say something. I wanted to ask her why she always tried to tear me down. But every time I tried to stand up to her, she'd twist things and make me feel like the bad guy. Once, I brought up how I always felt like the outsider in the family, that I felt different. She paused, then said, "Well, maybe you are." She said it lightly, casually, but the words hit hard. It was around this time that I started having recurring dreams, ones where I was a child, lost in a crowd, calling out for my parents. They would walk right past me like they didn't recognize me. I'd wake up in a sweat, heart pounding. I tried to talk to my mom once. I was 26. We were sitting in the kitchen having tea. I said, "Mom, did I ever remind you of someone? Like, someone you used to know?" She looked startled. "What kind of question is that?" "I don't know. I always felt like maybe I was different." Her eyes narrowed slightly. Then she smiled too quickly and said, "You're being ridiculous. You're my daughter. That's all you need to know." But her smile didn't reach her eyes. Even my physical differences started bothering me more as I got older. Madison had Mom's olive skin, hazel eyes, and thick, wavy chestnut hair. I had pale skin that burned in the sun, straight dark brown hair, and gray eyes that didn't match anyone in the family. Not even cousins. I started asking more questions. Where was I born? Mom said Redmond General, but when I tried to find a birth certificate online, I couldn't access anything without requesting it through the state. That felt normal, until I realized Madison's was somehow framed and sitting in her old bedroom drawer. Why it wasn't mine? It became a quiet obsession. A hunger I couldn't explain. I started going through family photos when I'd visit home, looking for me in birthday party pictures, school events. In some albums I was there, but always at the edge. Always slightly out of frame. Like I was an afterthought. I began journaling everything. Every weird memory. Every dismissive answer. Every moment Madison dropped a hint, and then claimed it was a joke. One time, she was drunk at Christmas and said, "You know, it's wild how you just appeared. Like one day, you were just there." I turned to my mom. She said nothing, and I think that silence hurt more than any words could. Still, I stayed. I kept trying. I helped with family holidays. I called Dad on Sundays. I brought wine to birthdays and smiled for the pictures. Because I believed, truly, that love was something you earned if you just showed up enough. But underneath it all, I was unraveling. Slowly, quietly. Like a loose thread no one noticed until it got too long to hide. And then came Dad's birthday. The moment when Madison finally said it out loud. Not as a joke, not as a whisper, but as a declaration. "You're adopted." The splinter wasn't just buried anymore. She drove it straight through my chest. And no one stopped her. The day started like any other family celebration. My dad's 60th birthday was a big deal. Mom planned it for weeks. A rented event hall, white tablecloths, catered buffet, even a playlist of his favorite songs from the 70s. I wore a navy blue wrap dress. Not too flashy, but nice enough. I curled my hair, added a touch of red lipstick. I even brought a photo collage I made for him, pictures of us through the years, fishing in Central Oregon, building a tree house when I was 8, our trip to Yellowstone. I wanted to make him feel loved. The room was warm, full of laughter and clinking glasses. Madison, as always, floated through the crowd like she owned it, laughing loudly, hugging everyone, charming them with old family stories. She wore a red dress that made her stand out even more than usual. Dad looked happy. He stood near the head of the room, smiling as people took turns giving short toasts. And then Madison clinked her glass. That sound, ting ting ting, is burned into my memory. Everyone quieted down. She stood at the front, right beside Dad, and said, "Tonight, I want to raise a glass to the man who raised us both." The room chuckled warmly. Madison continued, "Even though only one of us shares his DNA." Laughter stopped, like a needle scratched across a record. There was a beat, a long, heavy beat, where I thought she didn't just say that. Did she? I was standing near the dessert table. I remember the smell of the lemon bars, the faint instrumental music still playing behind us. I could hear someone's fork drop onto their plate. I looked at Dad. His face had gone pale. Mom looked stunned, but not surprised. Madison kept going. "I mean, come on. I figured it out years ago. Didn't we all?" She looked around like she was inviting others in on the joke. Emily's never looked like us. Never fit like us. Honestly, it was cruel of you guys to keep it a secret this long. My hands were trembling. "Madison, what are you talking about?" She smiled like she'd just revealed the punchline at a roast. "Oh, come on, Emily. You really didn't know?" "Wow." Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked gutted, but he still said nothing. I repeated, louder this time, "Is this true?" My voice cracked. All 40 guests were looking at me. Someone muttered, "Jesus." My mother took a small step forward, her face stiff. "Let's all calm down. This isn't the time." I turned to her. "Then when is the time, Mom?" Madison let out a breathy laugh. "Wow. You didn't even tell her? What were you waiting for, his funeral?" Dad stepped forward. "That's enough, Madison." "No, it's not," I snapped. "If this is true, if I was adopted, and you never told me, I want to hear it from you, not her." My chest was heaving. I could feel tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. Mom whispered something to Dad, but I couldn't hear it.
He looked at me.
And then he nodded. Just once.
A soft, slow yes.
And that was it. That single nod broke something in me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't feel my legs. Everything in the room went muffled, like I was underwater.
Faces blurred.
I turned, grabbed my purse from the chair, and walked out. I heard someone call my name, maybe it was Aunt Linda or my cousin Jenna, but I didn't stop. Outside, the cool night air hit me like a slap. I stood there on the curb, in heels that suddenly felt too tight, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I wasn't angry yet. I was hollow. This truth, the truth of who I was, had just been revealed to me in the most public, cruel, humiliating way imaginable. And no one had stopped it. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not even Madison, who had always known exactly what she was doing. And I kept thinking, why now? Why here? Why like this? A part of me wanted to turn around, go back in, scream at all of them, demand answers, demand apologies, demand something. But I couldn't move. I got in my car and drove. I drove for hours, aimlessly, past farms, gas stations, dark highways. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed distance. I needed the version of my life I'd lived until tonight to shrink in the rearview mirror. Eventually, I pulled into a motel somewhere 2 hours out. I sat on the bed with my dress still on, makeup smudged, and cried until sunrise. The silence in that room was louder than the entire party. I stared at myself in the mirror and kept whispering, "Who am I? Who am I?" And no one could answer. I didn't go home for 3 days. I didn't answer calls. I didn't check my messages. I just needed space to think. Or maybe to feel. Or maybe to not feel at all. I wasn't even sure anymore. I sat in that motel room staring at the walls, reading through my childhood journal entries, flipping through the digital copy of the photo collage I had made for my dad. The one I had printed, framed, and left on the dessert table before walking out. I kept asking myself, was it all a lie? Was everything a performance? Was I just a secret? On the 4th morning, I got in the car and drove home. Not to Portland. Home.
To them.
I didn't call ahead. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. Pale yellow siding, the same hydrangeas blooming along the walkway, the little wooden "welcome" sign on the porch. But it felt different now. Like a stage set. Like I could suddenly see the strings holding it all together. I rang the doorbell. Mom answered. She looked like she hadn't slept much, mascara shadows under her eyes, sweater slightly wrinkled. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, an apology, an excuse, a defense. But I beat her to it. "Is Dad home?" She stepped aside. "He's in the study." I walked past her without waiting for permission. Dad was sitting in his leather chair by the window, holding the newspaper, but clearly not reading it. When he saw me, he stood. "Emily," he started, but I raised my hand.
"No. Sit down."
"You're going to listen." He sat. Mom hovered in the doorway, arms crossed. I stood in the center of the room. The same room where we used to open Christmas presents, where I once sang into a hairbrush when I was 6, pretending to be Mariah Carey, and I took a deep breath. "I don't care what your reasons were." I began. "I don't care if it was complicated or emotional or legal or whatever else you've told yourselves for the past 30 years. What you did was betrayal." My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. "You let me build a life on a foundation of lies. You looked me in the eye every single day and let me believe I was yours. Your daughter. Your blood. Your legacy." Dad bowed his head. "And then you let her, Madison, weaponize that secret like it was hers to tell. Like it was a punchline at a party. She didn't know the full story," my mom started. I turned to her. "She knew enough to humiliate me. And you didn't stop her." Silence. I could feel my heart pounding, but I kept going. "You had 30 years to tell me the truth. You could have told me when I was 16 and felt like I didn't belong. You could have told me when I asked about the baby book. You could have told me last week." Dad whispered. "We were scared. We thought we'd lose you." "You did lose me," I snapped. "You just don't realize it yet." Mom stepped forward, her voice brittle. "You don't understand, Emily. We couldn't have kids after Madison. We tried for years. Failed IVF. Miscarriages. We were broken. And so you bought me? I spat. You adopted me and pretended it never happened? We thought love would be enough, she said. We raised you like our own. But you never made me feel like your own. That silence, that quiet, shameful pause, was all the confirmation I needed. I'm not here to ask why anymore, I said. I'm not here to beg for love or answers or photos you never took. I'm here to say this. I pulled out the family photo from my purse, the one from my graduation. Me, smiling awkwardly in the middle, their hands on Madison's shoulders, not mine. I held it up. This photo? I used to think it meant something. Now it feels like a lie. I tore it straight down the center. Mom gasped. I placed the two halves on the coffee table. I'm not part of this illusion anymore. Dad looked like he might cry. Emily, please don't walk away. I'm not walking away, I said. I'm stepping out of a role I never agreed to play. And with that, I turned and left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I didn't cause a scene. But I took back something that day. My dignity. My truth.
My voice.
And it felt more powerful than any apology they could have offered. The days after the confrontation were the loneliest of my life. Not because I missed them, but because I didn't know what to do with the silence that followed. I went back to Portland, closed my curtains, turned off notifications. I even stopped answering work emails for a week, something I'd never done before. I just existed. I'd wake up late, drink lukewarm coffee, stare at the wall. I kept thinking I should feel something.
Rage.
Relief. Sadness. But it was all wrapped in numbness. No one from the party reached out. Not even the cousins I used to babysit. Not even Aunt Linda, who always said I was her little twin. Just silence. Like I had vanished. Or maybe they were waiting to see what side they should take. Family politics. Emotional cowardice.
Call it what you want.
Only one person did reach out. Jenna, my cousin on Dad's side. She sent a short text 2 days after I left.
Hey.
I don't know what to say except that I'm sorry. I didn't know. But I'm on your side. Always. That one sentence meant more than anything my parents could have said. I didn't reply at first.
I didn't know how.
But I kept rereading it, just to remind myself that not everyone had abandoned me. Still, the grief sat inside me like wet cement. It wasn't just about the lie, it was mourning the life I thought I had. The parents I thought I knew. The sister I kept trying to love, even when she chipped away at me. I started seeing old memories through new lenses. When I was 9, I broke my arm at school. The nurse called home. Mom was busy, so she sent Madison to pick me up. I waited an hour in pain, only to have my sister roll her eyes and say, "You're so dramatic. It's probably just a sprain." Turns out it was a fracture. No one apologized. Another time, I found a drawing I made in 2nd grade. It was our family. Stick figures. I wrote Mom, Dad, Madison, and me under each one. But mine had a speech bubble that said, "Do you love me?" I was 7.
7.
Even back then, I was searching for confirmation. I didn't know what to do with all this grief. So I started writing it out. Pages and pages in a notebook. Not neat, not structured. Just everything. Anger, confusion, sorrow, questions. I wrote letters to people I would never send. One to Madison. One to my mom. One to a woman I didn't know yet, but wondered about constantly. My birth mother. I didn't even know if she was alive. Or what state she lived in. Or if she'd ever wanted me. That thought haunted me more than anything. What if she never wanted to know me? What if she was out there pretending I never existed? But still, I had to try. I contacted the state of Oregon's Adoption Records Department. Sent in the paperwork. Paid the fees. Waited. Weeks passed. During that time, I tried to get back to work. My co-workers were kind, but distant. They knew something had happened, but didn't ask. I appreciated that. I couldn't have explained it if I tried. Madison never called. Never texted. Not even a smug follow-up. Which, in some twisted way, hurt even more. Like her damage was so casual, she didn't even think about the aftermath. And my parents? They sent a letter.
Typed.
Formal. 2 pages. It said they were sorry for how things unfolded, that they loved me deeply, and that they hoped, in time, we could find our way back. But they never said they were wrong. Never said I deserved better. And so I didn't respond. Because love without accountability isn't love. It's manipulation. One night, I found myself going through old photos again. Not the curated albums, but random prints from a shoebox I'd taken from the attic years ago. Among them, I found a picture I had never really paid attention to, me as a toddler, sitting on a woman's lap I didn't recognize. The photo wasn't labeled. The woman wasn't smiling. She looked tired, worn down, but her arms were wrapped tightly around me. I stared at that photo for hours. Who was she? Was that her? Was that my mother? The ache in my chest grew sharper. It wasn't just the lie that hurt. It was the absence. The not knowing. I kept asking myself, what kind of mother gives up her baby? What kind of parents keep that a secret? What kind of sister turns that into a punchline? But deeper down, I started asking something else. What kind of woman do I want to become now that I know the truth? That question became my turning point. I couldn't go back, but I could rebuild. The healing didn't happen overnight, but it began the day I walked into a therapist's office and said, I don't know who I am anymore. Her name was Dr. Grace Palmer, a petite woman in her 60s with silver hair and a presence so calm it felt like a blanket. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush. She let me sit in silence for nearly a full minute after I said that and then gently asked, do you want to find out who you are or who you were before they tried to define you? I started seeing her every week, and it was through those quiet, difficult sessions that I began to untangle the knots inside me. The guilt that wasn't mine. The shame I had internalized. The anger I was afraid to express. Dr. Palmer taught me that grief isn't just for death, it's also for the lives we didn't get to live, for the families we didn't get to choose. For the first time, I stopped trying to be the good daughter. Instead, I focused on becoming a whole person. That's when I decided to move. I left my apartment in Portland, the one filled with memories of a version of me that was always waiting for validation, and found a cozy rental in Ashland. Smaller town, slower pace. I found a little bungalow with creaky wooden floors, ivy crawling up the sides, and a garden that hadn't been touched in years. It felt like it needed nurturing, like me. I spent weeks pulling weeds, planting wildflowers, building something with my hands. My neighbor, Karen, was a retired librarian who'd bring over fresh muffins and gossip. She reminded me of the aunts I used to pretend were mine when I was a kid. Except this time, I didn't have to pretend. She said one afternoon, I don't know what you've been through, Han, but you've got that kind of sadness that makes flowers grow better. Stick around, this neighborhood needs more women like you. That comment stuck with me. I also reconnected with Jenna. She drove 3 hours just to have dinner. We talked for 5 straight hours, cried over lemon pasta, and made a pact to stay in each other's lives no matter what. I always knew something was off, she said. You were treated differently. But I didn't know how to help. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You're speaking now, I told her. That counts. And then, something unexpected happened. One day, I got a manila envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single piece of paper. It was from the Oregon Department of Human Services. A name, a city, a birth date. It was her. My birth mother, Ellen Marie Dawson. Lives in Bend, Oregon. Birthday, April 3rd, 1960. I stared at the paper for an hour. My hands were shaking. I didn't know what to feel. Joy, terror, guilt, curiosity. All of it probably. Dr. Palmer told me to sit with it. You don't have to decide right now, she said. You get to choose what closure looks like. So I wrote a letter. Not to send, not yet. Just to write. I told Ellen who I was. What I'd been told. What I hadn't. I told her I didn't want anything from her, just truth. I told her about my garden. My therapist. My newfound love for baking banana bread, at 1 a.m. I told her I didn't know if I hated her or missed her or both. But most of all, I told her I was alive. And I was finally becoming myself. That night, I lit a candle, held the letter to my chest, and cried. Not the broken kind of crying, the cleansing kind. I wasn't done healing, but I was free. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for holding space for my story. Even if we've never met, even if you're just sitting with your phone in bed, or folding laundry, or crying in your car the way I used to. Because maybe, just maybe, you've lived something like this too. Maybe your betrayal didn't come at a birthday party. Maybe it wasn't shouted from a stage in front of 40 people. But maybe you felt that kind of ache, that hollowing out when the people who were supposed to protect you instead handed you the blade. If so, I want to say something to you, woman to woman, heart to heart. You didn't deserve it. You weren't too sensitive. You weren't being dramatic. You weren't imagining things. You were surviving. And sometimes survival looks like smiling at the dinner table while your heart is breaking under the weight of being invisible. It looks like keeping family secrets so tight in your chest you forget what your own voice sounds like. It looks like apologizing first, shrinking smaller, giving more, hoping, praying, bargaining just for a little love. I know. I did it for 33 years. But not anymore. Because healing starts the moment you choose yourself. It starts when you say, no more. It starts when you ask the hard questions. It starts when you let go of the version of yourself that was designed to make other people comfortable. And it continues in therapy, in friendships, in boundaries, in truth. It continues in the tiny, everyday acts of self-respect. Today, I don't speak to Madison. I don't attend family holidays. I don't send cards out of guilt. But I do wake up in a home I chose. I do laugh over coffee with the friends who see me. I do feel proud of the woman who looked betrayal in the face and still chose love, real love, starting with herself. So if you're still here, I'd love to hear from you. Comment below if you've ever had to rebuild from betrayal. Share your story, even just a piece of it. Let me know where you're watching from. Let's remind each other that we are not alone in this. And remember, family is not who shares your blood. It's who shows up when it matters. It's who listens. It's who loves you when you're a mess. It's who says your name like it's sacred, not a secret. If this resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. There's more to come. More truth. More healing. More stories from women who are finally done being quiet. Because silence never protected us, but our voices will. And mine? I'm never losing it again.